This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in
Through the Looking Glass. I am your co-host, Scott Criscuolo. Welcome to March. And unlike in past years, might as well just break the fourth wall now, as we say inside baseball. This episode is not about WrestleMania, because for the first time in a while, WrestleMania is not only not in March, but it's fairly deep in April. It's probably the latest WrestleMania in history. So we're going to save that for next month. But you hear his velvety voice. Let me bring in the Thunder from Down Under. Good morning, afternoon, evening, Mr. David Hall. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yes, good morning, good evening, and good night, as we may know from classic movies. But
Yes.
you're right. It's a weird year. We've never had WrestleMania sit so late, and it's resulted in a bit of a reshuffle. We've had to shuffle the card around.
Yes.
We've called an audible and we've shuffled the card around, and
we had to look through our own looking glass. We had to look at each other through the looking glass.
It's really good for. We're really glad that you are all joining us. We do appreciate you coming on these journeys with us, and we hope that we're assuming you're coming back because you are enjoying it. So
yes.
And we really appreciate that. But no, this is. I think we're going to have a bit of fun today. I think this could be an interesting journey today.
Yes, I agree. So we will definitely, obviously, this year, our WrestleMania-centric episode will be next month. So we'll look forward to that in April, probably right before Easter, because WrestleMania is Easter weekend, which might be causing some ticket sales issues. If you want to hear a discussion about that, check out this past weekend's episode of Place to Be Nation's Main Event. Myself, Andrew Reich, and Steve Willie, among many topics, talked about it. Allegiant Stadium is not filling up as fast as I think they wanted for WrestleMania 41. We have a PTB contingent going, as always. I will not be going this year because of the holiday. But I believe there are some ticket sales issues. So if you want to hear that conversation with Steve and Andrew and myself, check out the newest episode 249 of the Main Event. Yes, our next episode in 2 weeks, folks, is episode 250. Can you believe that, Dave? On top of these 600 plus episodes that the Place to Be podcast has, this coming episode of the Main Event will be episode 250.
Wow, that's just amazing,
isn't it? It's crazy.
So it makes you feel old. It's got to make you feel old
a little bit. But I mean, look, I'm somebody asked me today. I was at work. I was doing a soccer game for CBS, as a lot of you know. That's my second job, and I was doing a game, and somebody said to me, "Oh, so how long have you been working here?" I said, "Oh, I've been with the company for a little bit. Actually, a week from this. In fact, this coming Monday, if you're listening to this as it drops, this coming Monday, I will have been at my company for 22 years." And somebody said to me, 22 years? What are you, like 33? I'm like, what did you say? Did you say I'm in my early 30s? It was a woman. I almost probably broke protocol. But I
got down on one knee and proposed marriage.
Yes, I did. Exactly. But in any event, but yeah, 250 episodes, out of this world. And my birthday is the same day as the birthday of PlaceToBeNation.com and of this fine universe. But the feed technically started. I mean, we did. I know we'll get to the topic, everyone. We started the feed in February of 2011. That was Place to Be podcast episode uno. Mm-hmm. But it was early 2014 when we first started expanding. We did some special episodes those first 3 years, 2011, 2012, and 2013. But 2014 is when the Kevin Kelly show debuted, and then Place to Be Nation's Main Event, and that's when everything kind of blew up. And now look at us. Now we have five networks in our world. So we have us, we have the Place to Be Pop Experience, we have the No-So, we have the Backbone, we have the Jenny Position, I guess, is like part of the No-So, but Jenny Position as well. Look what we've done. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. We're just getting younger, Dave. Don't worry about it. If we go through the looking glass, we'll go back to our 20s. So that's what I hope. That's what I wish.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, next episode of Through the Looking Glass will actually be to look at how the podcast world might have been a bit different.
Imagine if we did a through the. I should do maybe JR and I could think of that for this year's Christmas show in 2025. Through the Looking Glass. What if Place to Be Place to Be Nation never existed? That would be absolutely hilarious. But in any event, all right, let's get down to business. All right, enough nostalgic stuff. Anyway, so this month, Dave, why don't you lead us in? If we're not doing WrestleMania this month, what journey are we taking?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. What a surprise question you've thrown at me there, Scott. No, so as we alluded to earlier, we recognised that with WrestleMania being a bit later, we would do a bit of a reshuffle, and we had to think about what might fit and what has really become the go-to event for the WWF for a few years now between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania has been the Elimination Chamber. Mm-hmm. And so we thought we might take the opportunity to imagine what things could have been like if the Elimination Chamber happened at maybe some earlier points in history or in some other locations. Now, we've done this sort of thing before. We've looked at what if the Royal Rumble was in a different company, or what if War Games had been a WWF creation and not a WWF. We've done this idea before of transporting our great events and our favorite matches into different time periods before they existed or different companies. And that's what we're going to do a bit of both today. We're going to have a look at some Elimination Chamber ideas at some earlier time periods before the creation of the first chamber, which I think it was, well, we're at, that's about 22 years ago now, because the first chamber was 2003, wasn't it?
2002.
2002.
Survivor Series 2002 at Madison Square Garden was the very first Elimination Chamber. Of course, Shawn Michaels won it. He defeated
in his poo brown pants.
In his brown pants and his cute little bob. And his bob haircut. And our first one, we'll tipping a little bit. Our first journey tonight involves Shawn indirectly, but the Elimination Chamber has happened now. 22 years. I think starting in 2009, we had an Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which I know we all talk about gimmicks becoming shows, and of course the most egregious one that nobody wanted was Hell in a Cell, because that's what that Dave, in case you didn't know, and I know most people that have listened for years know, that's my favorite match gimmick, is a cage, and I look at it ahead extra, and my favorite, and I love Hell in a Cell. But that's a match, it's not a pay-per-view. And so, but the Elimination Chamber as a pay-per-view is not terrible because of where they put it. They always put it in February, because particularly now that there's two world champions, you always needed a number one contender for whoever didn't win the Rumble. So we've had this conversation many times in the past. So but yeah, the very first one was November of 2002 at Survivor Series at the Garden. And we've had some really great chambers, we've had some shaky chambers, but I must admit, this year's chamber was very good. I quite enjoyed the men's chamber match this year. I might not have enjoyed the outcome, but I definitely enjoyed the match. So yeah, I didn't like the outcome, but I didn't love the outcome. You and I may be a couple that we might be in the minority on that, but
I don't mind where they've taken the storyline, and I can accept that it makes for a big match. I just think that someone else should have won the match. So that's just my opinion.
I agree.
Some people just get punked out. It really makes it difficult, and I'm sure that we'll hear more about that in the future at some point. So.
Yes.
But no, but we're not here. I mean, we could rebook this year. We could rebook this year's Elimination Chamber outcome if we wanted, but that's not what we're. That's not one of the ones we're going to.
No.
We're going to journey through today. Well, we're gonna journey through some different ones. But I guess before we do, I always like to do this question when we cover this sort of thing.
Sure.
What is it about the Elimination Chamber that you like, Scott? What do you enjoy about chamber matches?
Well, good question, Dave. Number one, probably three things. Number one, I love anything with a cage. I'm an old school fan, Dave, like you, going back to the mid 80s. Not just obviously for me growing up in the Northeast, obviously the WWF was my number one love. But of course I did watch Crockett and the NWA because it was on Saturday nights. And I'm a fan of violence to end a feud. So anything with a chain, anything that involves something you could hit someone with, I am in favor of. So when that was created, obviously Vince invented it. In kayfabe, Eric Bischoff invented it. But I mean, I could have seen WCW or Eric Bischoff invent this for WCW. Maybe we'll come up with one this evening. Who knows? So that's number one. I love anything that's got extra violence in it because that's my old school wrestling thinking. Number two, I'm always of the mindset that a good gimmick match can create other creative opportunities for you. Kind of like Royal Rumbles, tournaments, battle royals, something that you could create to build to something down the line. So in a case of an Elimination Chamber, Dave, when you've got a match with 6 guys in it, or 6 ladies in it, you can build on something else to the next thing. So in obviously WWE's case, you could build something to WrestleMania because the Elimination Chamber is usually the show in February. So I think that it's a creative opportunity to build to other things, and there's cases of that in the past. It leads to, and obviously the number one example you could use, Dave, is the Elimination Chamber in 2010 when The Undertaker was defending his World Heavyweight Championship in a chamber, and Shawn Michaels, who wasn't even in the match, cost Taker the title. The match would be won by Chris Jericho, which of course led to the main event of WrestleMania 26 between Shawn and Taker, match versus career. Now, it was already kind of in the works because, Shawn needed to win the Rumble. He wanted Taker back. Taker told him, I beat you. That's your problem. You can't handle it. And, that kind of thing. But that was it was a way to keep the match genuine, yet at the same time create something to build to WrestleMania. And of course, Jericho won the title, Edge won the Rumble, and of course they were feuding because they were tag partners, and so forth and so on. So, and number three, it can make stars, like a Royal Rumble can make a star. I don't know if there's a diesel push in a chamber. Depends where you book someone. You could argue, except for the end, which was, I don't approve of it. I want to be on the record with this. Goldberg in the Elimination Chamber at SummerSlam 2003 had almost a diesel push because he got out and I think he took 3 guys out. But then, of course, the garbage ending. And I completely say that was a garbage ending. Triple H should have dropped the belt at that show. I totally agree with that.
But that's say, everyone, you heard it here first on Through the Looking Glass. You heard it here first. Scott acknowledging that Triple H should have lost that one.
Yes, he did. There are a lot of things about. I'm in the middle of watching on one of my chrono watches. I'm watching 2003 right now, and there were some things about 2003 that I think are unfairly maligned, but there are some things about 2003 that should be maligned. That's one of them. Yeah. The other is not having. Well, I won't get into it, but I know everybody thinks Booker T should have won at WrestleMania. Unfortunately, signing Goldberg kind of threw a wrench in that mix because they didn't want Triple H losing the belt a bunch of times. So when Goldberg eventually won it, it would lose its shine. That I think is true. Whether anybody agrees with it or not that's your issue. But that's how that was. But anyway, we're not going to go down through the looking glass. Scott Criscuolo fixes 2003, so it's the greatest year ever. No, I'm just kidding. Boy, that'd be a pretty big looking glass. But in any event, so those are my three things, Dave. Number one, it's a great vehicle for violence. Number two, it's a great vehicle to create alternate secondary and tertiary storylines leading to your next big show, which usually in the WWE's case is WrestleMania. And then number three, it can create stars. You could kind of do a Diesel push if booked properly. So what about you? What about you?
Yeah, look, I agree with some of what you've said. I love the uncertainty that can come with the match. For me, one of the reasons I love the Royal Rumble is you've got the guys coming in at different moments. You just don't know who's going to be in the ring at the same time. You have those unique matchups that you never get to see, or create new unique situations. And that's one of the things I do like about the Elimination Chamber. 6 guys, but with the use of the pods and entering at different stages, you can have guys who maybe don't normally interact or haven't really faced each other in the ring all of a sudden in a one-on-one confrontation. And I think that's a great moment. And I think we really got a good example of that in this year's Chamber, like the way the crowd came to life when Punk and Cena turned to face each other for the first time. Like, it was that moment of, we never thought we'd probably see this again. And now they're together. And look, we'll probably see it again down the track. But I love that unique opportunity. I love the violence. I love the creativity that it brings. And I like it when guys get creative with matches. So I think that's all a great element, a great spectacle that's included. And like you, I love the cage matches. I was a big fan of War Games. So
yes,
this is,
of course, absolutely.
This to me, when it was first, and I believe this is part of the foundation of it, when it was first created, it was WWE's answer to the War Games concept. It was them finally recognizing people were wanting War Games because WWE had bought the WCW rights and they had the tape library and all that, and they went a different way and they created Elimination Chamber, and I think it falls into that category. The anything can happen, anything can go, and you're just going to get pure and utter chaos at some points. And so, yeah, that's what I think. I think there are some elements of the Chamber that are a little bit overdone and overblown. I think it really has gotten to the point we now just see whoever gets in at 1 and 2 are pretty well going to be there near the end these days. It's very unusual for people to be eliminated early. And I'd love, and I know maybe this will come up later tonight, I would love to see a Chamber where someone actually beats guys when they come out of the pod. So you sort of have a guy who runs a bit of the gauntlet for a moment where he's eliminated someone before the next person is even due to come out. So he's, that idea that you get in the Rumble where they're in the Rumble on their own waiting for the next person. I'd love to see that in a Chamber. Too often now, whoever starts the Chamber is there at the end. It happens every Chamber match. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that could be. There's only so many times you could have the guy at 1 win the Royal Rumble, and there's only so many times you could have the first guy stick around. Sometimes you just got to have him get knocked out, That's it. And unfortunately, that's become a go-to mechanism in the Rumble as well. One of the first 2 in is going to have a big long run. It happens every Rumble now. It's not a shock anymore, whereas it used to be, a long run would still be eliminated in the middle of the Rumble, and it was only the occasional guy that would run the gauntlet. So, but look, the Elimination Chamber is a great match, a great spectacle, and I love it. And that's why we're going to have some fun with Elimination Chambers tonight. And that's where we're going. We're going to take. We've got 3 or 4, depending on how long we spend on each one. We've got 3 or 4 ideas here where we're going to go into a year in a location. Yep. We're going to
put 6 guys into an elimination chamber from that time period, from that, era that would be appropriate for an elimination chamber match. And we're going to maybe have a look at how that match would have panned out. Who would have started? Who would have come in at the different moments? Who might have eliminated each person? And maybe moments that might have been built, like you said, it's a great opportunity to build to something in the future. Maybe something that might be utilized to build to the future, and further, and then obviously who the winner would be and the outcome there. So that's where we're going to go tonight.
Yep, absolutely. And we've got like I said, we don't want to go too long tonight, but we've got a couple in the hopper that we really want to focus on, and if we have a little time, maybe we'll throw an extra one in. So, Dave, why don't you set us up with scenario, a vision through the looking glass. Let's go through the looking glass. What is our first case study?
All right. Well, we're going to jump in our time machines. We're going to go back to 1997. Now, it's been
great year, amazing year.
and it's been, look, I've been a part of the Place to Be community for pretty well since its inception.
Oh no, you're an OG, brother. You're an OG.
I know. I've heard you and Justin talk about this time period a lot, and how the top of the card in late 96 and into early 97 became bloated with stars. WWF had worked really hard to regenerate their main event scene, and we were in a time period where there were legitimately 6 or 7 guys all in the main event picture, all battling for the world title. And it was a great time period as a result. And I thought, it creates a concept where we've got a time period where you've got a bunch of guys who could go into a chamber match and be accepted as all a potential winner. And then I realized and remembered that 97 had the unique finish to the Rumble where Austin had been eliminated, jumped back in, eliminated Bret, and Bret complained about it. And so they moved into the Final 4 pay-per-view and did essentially redid the last 4 guys in the Rumble. But I thought to myself, well, what if we put an elimination chamber between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania in 1997 and ran a chamber match instead of the Final 4? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to run a chamber match in 1997 instead of the Final 4 pay-per-view match. It's now in your house elimination chamber.
Wow. Could you imagine? Holy shit. Could you imagine that? What a match concept for that time period.
I think it would have blown everyone away, I think. Because they can really sit there and go, we're going to build. We've got the Rumble format of 2 guys start and someone comes in, but they're going to be in a cage and they're going to be there and present. You don't know who's coming. I think it would have gone off. I think it would have been an amazing night if this happened. So that's our time period. Now Scott and I spoke before the match, and we thought, the Final 4 match ended up initially was to crown the number 1 contender to go to WrestleMania, and so that would have been the foundation of the match. The match would have been built with that concept. The Rumble result was tainted because Austin had been eliminated. He came in and eliminated guys who he shouldn't have done that. And so our victory, our final winner, was a tainted victory. And so Gorilla Monsoon would come out and he would announce that, no, there is no number 1 contender, but for WrestleMania, we still need it. And so this elimination chamber concept is created. The winner will face Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 13. And as a result, he would announce that we're going to have 6 competitors. The Final 4 are going to be in there. Okay. Actually, I think it would end up being the Final 5 almost, with a little bit of rework, recognizing that Fake Diesel is not going to be selected for this match.
No.
But just as an aside, if you actually want to get technical, they did overlook him because he was one of the last 4 in the ring at the Royal Rumble. So in that circumstance, Fake Diesel, I think, was the 4th, the number, like 4th last person in the match.
Right. Yep.
So they overlooked him. So, yeah, Gorilla announces that we're going to have a Elimination Chamber. The winner is they're going to have the final 4 or final 5, which would be Bret the Hitman Hart, The Undertaker, Vader, and Steve Austin. And Mankind would be the next person down, because that was who was battling on the outside that allowed Austin to get back in. And the 6th person will be the person who lost the title at the Royal Rumble in Psycho Sid. So there's our 6 competitors: Stone Cold, Mankind, Vader, Bret Hart, Undertaker, and Psycho Sid. But of course, as fate would have it, on Thursday, Raw Thursday, Shawn Michaels comes out and announces to the world with a tear in his eye that he lost his smile.
He did.
That he could no longer go on, that he might have to retire, and we all know the sob story and whether or not it was legit. But we know that Shawn vacated the title, and so it was announced on Thursday, Raw Thursday, that the Elimination Chamber will now be crowning the WWF champion. So
wow.
There's our setup for this match.
Wow. They're still looking for the smile in Lowell, Massachusetts, by the way. They still haven't found it. It's been 25 years or whatever. Almost, it's been over 25 years. We still can't find the smile in Lowell, Massachusetts. So, wow. If you had a ticket to Chattanooga, Tennessee, oh my. Before we get to the booking aspect of it, I'm thinking logistically. Obviously, at the time, WWF was, doing okay, but they weren't making, the most money on the planet at the time. So they were booking a lot of particularly their secondary pay-per-view, although pretty much they were doing all their pay-per-views in small places. I mean, even WrestleMania was at Rosemont, SummerSlam was at the Meadowlands. So they weren't booking big. I mean, the last big show, the Royal Rumble, was at the Alamo Dome. I'm curious if they had planned, this is the only change I would make, Dave. And if you agree with this, tell me. They probably would need a larger venue, because the arena in Chattanooga probably only seated, I don't know, 6,000 probably. I'm going to look. I'm going to look it up on Wiki. I'm going to look up that show and see how many. Let's see, how many type. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because we do want to be fair in the sense that, we do want to kind of see if it was feasible to actually have. All right, so it was at the UTC Arena in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Of course, the date was February 16th, 1997. UTC Arena in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now, the place only seats, Dave, 6,300. Well, that's how many were there. 6,399. I'm curious. Let me see how many it seats. It's now called McKenzie Arena. The nickname is the Roundhouse, which I think is pretty cool. Okay, now, the capacity is 10,995, and you could probably, with floor seating, you could probably make it over 11,000. So I wanted to make sure that the venue would have been able to handle a chamber, and based on what I'm seeing, the answer is yes. I think it can handle a structure like that without really being out of sync.
And it's also at a time when they weren't. It was before the real use of the Titantron, the big video screen where they pretty well take out one whole end of the arena. Like, this was still at a time when you did have the full surround crowd. Like, they'd have a partial block where they'd have the curtain and the little graphics screen, but it wasn't you'd still have a crowd above that entrance area. So it's it sounds like you could probably get. You probably anticipate you might get with a bit of structure, with a bit of the entry area and all that, and a bit of room. You'd probably be looking at maybe 8,000 to 9,000 if it was at capacity.
It seats 11 if maximum capacity, and this was for a basketball game in 2007. They got 11,221.
Yeah. So you're gonna need an aisle. You're gonna need an entry aisle. You're gonna have your in your house set, which will take out some seated area, but they'll still be able to be above that, like sitting over the top of that as well. So
right.
You might lose 1,000 seats to sort of the entryway and the aisle.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it'll work. I think we've got a venue that would be, at the time, it would certainly work.
I think it would. No, I think it would. I just want to make sure it was big enough, and this place is most certainly big enough. So, yeah. All right.
All right. So let's get into this one. So we've got our 6. The question we need to ask is, who kicks us off? I think in circumstances like this, I would suggest that you could consider kicking off the match with Stone Cold. I think Stone Cold would be the perfect person in early 97 to kick off the match. Before his neck injuries have happened, before his knee injuries, he is in probably the peak condition. The last time he was probably in peak condition in the company. I think he was a machine that could go. I think you would want someone like Austin as one of your first 2.
Yes, I was actually going to say that. Actually, I was going to, because he is the hot guy right now, and plus the company will punish him, saying you cheated. So if you're gonna legitimately win this title, you're going to have to go through all 5 guys. You're going to have to go through to the end from the beginning to get it done.
Yep.
And so I like that idea. Yep.
Yeah. And looking at who's in the match, the one thing I would want to do is you want to build anticipation for a potential Austin Bret showdown at some point in the match. So you don't want Bret starting. He needs to be in a pod. And I think the 3 big guys also need to be in a pod. So I think by process of elimination, the starting 2 would be Stone Cold and Mankind.
Oh, okay. That would be a fun hot mess.
Well, they had a battle on Raw in December 96.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they actually had a match. If I remember correctly, I think they had a match the night after Survivor Series in 96 in I was there, I think in my home building, the New Haven Coliseum, right after the Survivor Series at the Garden. So yeah, I mean, we're talking, and that could just, the situation here, Dave, obviously early 97, we haven't quite hit the violence meter yet, but Vince, these guys, you're talking Sid, Taker, Vader, are gonna they're gonna go to Vince and go, listen, I know, we're not, it's happy pants time, but Vince, you're gonna have to let us kind of loosen the reins and get a little nasty here. A, we're in this giant structure, and B, I mean, the world title, the Winged Eagle's on the line, the ultimate prize in this business, the World Wrestling Federation Championship. So we can't be lollygagging and dancing around and having like a 1995 cage match. We need to go in there. We need to hurt each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I think we'd seen we saw late 96, early 97 is when things started to change in ring. There was a little bit more brawling. This sort of stuff became a little bit more accepted. We might not have seen the blood as much at this point, but we certainly were seeing the in-ring chaos increase in late 96, early 97. So I think Vince would have been open to giving them a little bit of leeway here. And I just think I can just picture Austin and Mankind really making use of it early. I can see Mankind being, I think this is the first time we've talked about it. I picture Mankind. Mick Foley's going to take a couple of crazy bumps. I think the first one's going to be he's going to get backdropped onto that steel, like over the top of the rope from inside the ring onto that steel platform. That's
great.
Great. Yes, that's going to be like the first big bump of the match. Will be in with these two. Austin's going to backdrop him straight over the top onto that rail, and it's going to be a massive moment. I think that's one of them, and of course I also think you're going to see both Mankind and Austin go head first into the mesh of the cage.
Yes, and you're going to see some blood right out of the gate, and you got two guys who are going to leave nothing to chance, and realize that we need to assess our energy, because we're looking, other than Bret, we got three behemoths sitting there in Sid, Taker, and Vader, and we got to eliminate each other quickly, because the longer we're out here, the easier it is to pick the bones when these big monstrosities come in and start trying to knock us out. So I think it's going to be a very brisk pace out of the gate to get one of these for Mick and Mick and Steve to try to eliminate the other. That's the big thing out of the gate.
Yeah. So I think so. I think these two guys, they're going to battle their 5 minutes out. Like I said, they're going to use the cage, the grate. They're going to be all over it. And then we get our first countdown. I don't think we would have any eliminations by this point. I think these two guys would go at it. We get the first countdown, and I'll put it to you. I'd like us to work it out together. I don't have any set way this would go.
Sure,
but I'm thinking that when the buzzer goes for the first pod to be open, I think this would be a perfect moment for Vader to come out. Vader is a guy who can be brutal, and I think this match would give him an opportunity to really be let loose in a way that he hadn't been in the company at this point. You've also got the concept, and we know that Mick Foley at this point in time was pitching he and Vader go against each other at WrestleMania. And we know it didn't end up going that way, but that was certainly a pitch being put by Mick. So I think it creates the opportunity where Mick and Foley and Vader could work together a little bit, but also get
absolutely.
the misunderstanding and go against each other without it detracting from anyone else in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Vader is going to go out there, and this is where I said, if they're going to run into, if they're going to talk to Vince beforehand about, and say, listen, we've got to kind of, you're going to have to kind of open the ripcord on this, open the floodgates a little bit on this. I think Vader is going to go out there and he's going to see two guys who have no problem, throwing bones. So I think once Vader comes in, I think you're going to see the violence meter amped up to the nth degree, and I think at some point somebody's going to get eliminated here. I don't know who. I don't know if it's Mick.
I think it would be Mick. I think I agree with you. Someone needs to be eliminated. I think Vader probably has caused some carnage, and I see what would happen is Vader and Mankind get into a bit of an argument. Like initially they try to work together, and maybe Mick's holding or Vader's holding Austin for the other to do the attack. Austin gets out of the way. There's that misunderstanding moment, and Vader and Mankind just start going hammer and tong at each other while Steve is just watching. And I'm picturing, you could probably picture maybe Mankind puts the mandible claw on Vader and is driving him down to the mat and sort of lets it go, turns around, and Austin drops him with a stunner.
Mm-hmm.
and Austin gets that first pin in the match on Mankind.
Okay. So Steve pins Mick. I agree with that. I think we need to boost up Stone Cold's cred, particularly in this match, because next to, obviously, he is, and I think this is something that JR and Vince and Jerry on commentary can emphasize, that, this is a match where, violence is key. This isn't like the Rumble where it's just a lot of striking and stuff for endurance purposes. You're talking about a giant structure, 6 guys, and you have 2 guys kind of regular size and 4 guys that could really hurt you. And they could emphasize that. And for Austin to get a pin out of the gate would be huge for him, boost his cred, and maybe give him a puncher's chance as this match moves on, because now you kind of got to do a bob and weave. But here's the problem. Again, other than Bret, now you've got Vader, but then you've got Taker and Sid, who are not little guys. I think it's a tremendous narrative that, Jerry and King and JR and Vince on commentary could really emphasize that, listen, if Austin's going to win this, or if Bret's going to win this, boy, they're going to have to go through hell, for lack of a better term, to escape this match. And this thing, it's a closed structure, and they're sitting in these glass chambers staring at them like, I swear to God, I'm just going to fold you up and crush you. And so I think the big key, I agree with you, is for Austin to get a quick pin, or Mick, in this case, it would be Austin to get a quick pin, and then he and Vader, can kind of bob and weave Vader and make wear him out. I think it's an endurance thing at this point.
Yeah,
I gotta wear him out.
Yeah, I think he drops him early in Vader, like I said, Vader and Mankind started battling, and Austin takes advantage, and then of course Vader and Austin can just be going, and Vader's a big hitter, and I think at this point, early in that first segment, Austin has gone into the cage. He's spouted blood, so Vader can just be pummeling him, and Austin, like you said, trying to duck and weave, and maybe Austin takes out Vader's knee, does something to just get Vader down and temporarily, where, like you suggested, the commentators, Jim Ross might sort of say, oh, maybe he's got a chance to get rid of Vader now. And then the countdown comes on, and I think this would be the perfect moment to bring Bret out. Okay. Because this is the moment where where Austin can go into, because he was still a heel at the time, he can go into that temporary cowardly heel moment. He's got blood dripping on his face. He can be backing away. Like Bret, just the door opens. Austin does that look that he does, like, please, you've got to be kidding me. Bret comes out. Austin backs up a couple of steps, and as Bret steps through the ropes, he charges. And then he and Bret just start going at it. And they completely forget about Vader. They're going at it, and that just allows Vader to come in and wipe them both. And then Vader can start having his way for a couple of minutes, just taking them both on, throwing them around, tossing them around a little bit.
Yes, because we have to make it, obviously Bret and Austin, or the feud is percolating, obviously, it's over the moon. But again, I'm going to go back to this point as we can for this match. The other matches we do tonight might have a different philosophy, because we won't have matches with a ton of big, hosses. But the announcers are going to continue to emphasize, listen, Bret and Austin can tear each other apart, but you've got 400-pound Vader, and then you've also got 315-pound Taker and 315-pound Sid. You're going to have to figure out how to survive this. So maybe in a weird way, Austin and Bret look at each other and go, listen, we can do this at the end, but we got to survive all this beef. So maybe Bret and Austin start to work Vader over, like, listen, if you want a piece of me, I want a piece of you, but we're not going to be able to do that with all these hosses in this match. So let's try to work together, get rid of these guys, and then it's you and I for the world title. So maybe that's a philosophy you think about,
I think you see it for a moment. I like that idea that to counter the strength of Vader, they've got to do that. And maybe in the midst of this, the next pod opens up, and so it really is that moment where the two of them think we've got to work together. So maybe we get that third pod opening, and I guess the question is, who comes out third? Would it be Sid or would it be Taker?
Well, it'd be fourth.
Well,
right?
it's the third pod, because the first pod had Vader in it.
The third pod. I'm sorry. I thought you meant the third guy. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, the third pod.
Yeah.
I would do Taker.
All right. So Taker comes out, and like you said, I think Bret, Taker comes in. He's going to town on everyone. And like you said, I think there's a moment in amongst all this where Bret and Steve, there's that, like you said, the talk's going on. They're going to have to work together. They're going to have to consider working together. And Jerry could be saying, there is no way it would ever happen. They hate each other so much.
Right.
And we just get that moment where they do. Maybe they both start to battle into Taker, like, that sort of trading punches, and Taker's caught between the two of them fighting him, and Taker starts to go down. And, Vince can be saying, I can't believe they're working together. It's a shock. And they get Taker down to his, maybe they get him down to his back. Maybe they do a double clothesline or a double back. They do some sort of double team move that just would shock the world. But Austin can't help himself. And he tries to schoolboy Bret, or do something to Bret to take advantage of the moment. You got that moment where they tried to work together, but Austin just can't go through with it. The hatred's too much for him, and he tries to turn it on Bret, doesn't get the pin, and turns around into a choke slam from Taker. And I think this is where you could eliminate Stone Cold. He couldn't work with Bret long enough to make it matter, and it ends up costing him the match.
Yeah, absolutely. And he could extrapolate on that or expound on that the next night on Raw in a promo, and that could set up WrestleMania for him. So yeah, I agree. He just can't help himself. He's not thinking rationally because he hates Bret that much that I can't do this anymore, and I'm getting rid of you, and maybe one of these other people will work with me or something. I don't know. And then he gets, and then Taker choke slams him or something, and that's the end of that.
Yeah. And I think you could also take the moment in this time period. I think that could happen early in the process. And then I think it also would create an opportunity. You could probably look to get Vader out of the match around the same time, just after this. Maybe Taker choke slams Vader, and Bret comes off the ropes with an elbow or something like that to just reinforce the damage, and Vader gets eliminated as well. So you've got this moment where for just maybe a minute, Bret and Taker can be staring each other down, and they start to battle one-on-one before Sid gets in the match.
Right. Yeah,
I
can see that.
That would get the crowd going.
Yep. Yeah, because at this point now, we're getting down to crunch time. Now it's all Haas's and Bret, and you think to yourself, Bret's the babyface. Is this like Bret's? Oh my God, Bret is, all the Hitman fans defying the odds. We can build the anticipation that Bret could somehow survive this and become WWF champion again with all of these guys and all of these big dudes, Yeah, I like that idea. I like it.
So yeah, I think that's where we get. So we end up, Bret and Taker can then they can just have that one-on-one moment, maybe trade a couple of blows, a couple of moves, and then we release Sid into the match. And so we've got We've got Sid coming in to be Sid for a couple of minutes. So I think he beats on both guys, maybe a choke slam here and whatever, and perhaps sets Bret up for a power bomb, but Taker breaks it up by clotheslining Sid. Like you've just got all those sort of moments you can have in there in the carnage and the chaos of all that. And I just picture that, you've got this moment where I think, this is where we've got to start making a decision of who's coming out of the match with the title, because we know we're building to WrestleMania. We know that we are going to want Bret versus Stone Cold at Mania now that Shawn's not going to be there. I guess the question to ask is, are we going to run with Sid and Taker as the title match at Mania, or are we going to head in a different direction? Because that really, I think, determines who your last couple of guys in the ring are. Is going to be determined by who's going to win the title and who's going to be in the main event at WrestleMania.
Well, I don't have a problem sticking with doing Sid and Taker in Chicago. I don't have a problem with that. You've already got Bret and Steve are booked for Mania. You already have that in the back of your mind. That's already on Vince's ledger, so we'll figure that out.
So if Sid and Taker are still going to be the main event at WrestleMania, then I think it is important that and if we even wanted to head into the fact that Sid is going to defend the title against Taker, you want to make sure that Sid and Taker are not involved in the other's elimination.
Correct.
So I think if we head in the direction that perhaps we're going to keep WrestleMania as it is, and Sid's going to go in as champion, I think Bret gets a shock roll up on Taker at some point. Taker, maybe he choke slams Sid over the top of the rope and onto the grate. And the crowd are just like, he could be standing over the ropes looking down at him. And Bret gets him from behind, rolls him up, pulls the tights, because Bret can do that.
Yep.
And gets the 3 count on Taker, and Taker is absolutely shocked.
Yeah, because he'll look at Bret like, what the heck, dude? Because the line's still pretty clear, babyface and heel for early 1997. So Taker could look at Bret and go, what are you doing? Bret's like, that's like the Rumble, And then you could kind of do the way you could kind of at this point, Dave, utilize the cage match ending from the next night on Raw and have Sid, Austin come back and cost Bret the match again, go through the chain, get bolt cutters or something dramatic, get into the chamber, push Bret into like one of the pods through the plexiglass or whatever, and then Sid power bombs Bret and gets the pin and wins the title.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I think what you've described there, it's something similar to what they did on Raw.
Yep.
Modified. I guess in a way you could, whether it be exactly like that or even something similar to, a little bit like, not exactly the same, but with Taker leaving the ring, maybe Bret, maybe Austin, scrambles back in for a moment and, takes a shot at Bret, similar to what Seth Rollins did to Punk. You could have that sort of moment, whatever you could, it could be that, the bolt cutter thing. I think, we saw that a few years ago in one, I can't remember which chamber it was, but that's a familiar one again, where someone got the bolt cutters and broke into the chamber and did something. I can't remember. We might be able to remember that, but I have a memory of something like that happening in a previous chamber as well.
Yeah,
but
I can't
that
think
idea.
Right.
Yeah. But I think, like you said, that idea, Austin comes out, gets back into the chamber, and does something to cost, that leads to Bret getting power bombed by Sid.
Yeah, that's what I think. And then, you can even power bomb him if you really want to make it dramatic, you could have Bret get power bombed on the grate.
Oh.
And then Sid just like kicks him under the bottom rope and pins him.
Yeah,
if you really want to make it disgusting,
Yeah, a big moment. That'd because that you wouldn't expect Bret to be able to kick out of that.
Right, exactly. And then once again, Stone Cold does it again, and then we're on our way. So the build to Mania will be roughly the same.
Yes.
It's just instead of dealing with the cage match after Raw the next night or whatever, and instead of Bret winning here, we just have Sid win. We skip the shenanigans. And then we could have Bret kind of flip out the next night on Vince going, this is bullshit. Like the whole rant that he does. We could still do that.
Yeah, he could do it the next night in complaint about how could you let him back in the match. He did it again. I eliminated him at Rumble and he jumped back in. I eliminated him in the Elimination Chamber last night and he got back in and he cost me. He screwed me over. The WWF is screwing me over, and Bret starts his descent as he did. Pushes Vince down, and that whole interview can go pretty well exactly the same.
Exactly. Yep. So I like that, Dave, and I think that match will be very violent. I don't think it won't reach levels that we would see later in the decade or even in the 2000s, but for February 1997 standards, it'll be pretty violent. I don't think we'll have a problem with that. So let us know what you think of that, of our first case study through the looking glass of rebooking In Your House Final Four in February of 1997 into an Elimination Chamber. And we kind of go the same path. Sid wins just like he won the cage match, and we're on our way. So, all right, Dave, journey number 2.
All right. Well, we're going to jump back a few. We're going to stay in the WWF for a moment. We're going to stay in the WWF. We're going to jump back a few more years to a very different time period, a time period where violence and blood were not as. In fact, blood was outlawed at this time, because we know people get in trouble for drawing blood in certain matches. But yet, I think we have a time period where the potential competitors for a match, I think, would create a fantastic Elimination Chamber. We're going to go to 1992, and we're going to set our Elimination Chamber at the Survivor Series 92. Yes, the first year that they didn't do all the Survivor matches.
Correct.
But that's because President Jack Tunney is going to announce that for the first time at Survivor Series, there's going to be a true match of survival when the Elimination Chamber happens, and 6 men will be involved in the match. 4 men will be in these pods, and 2 men will start. And to survive, there's going to be a cage, and to survive the match, you've got to survive the conditions, and 5 opponents to come out as the World Wrestling Federation champion. And that's going to, Survivor Series 92. And I think it's very clear then who's going to be involved in the match, because we've got a new world champion in late 1992. None other than Bret the Hitman Hart has just taken the title from Ric Flair.
Yep.
And this is essentially going to be Bret's first big title defense. It's a pretty massive match to put him in straight up, but he's going to be defending the title. And the match is announced that the competitors for this match are going to be the various top contenders. The former champion Ric Flair will be in the match.
Okay.
As will the champion prior to that, the Macho Man Randy Savage, will also be in this match. The man who helped cost Savage his world title, Razor Ramon, will be in the match. And at the time of the match being announced, this man was not a champion, but he was deemed one of the top contenders, and that will be Shawn Michaels will also be in the match.
He's Intercontinental champion.
He will win. he does win the Intercontinental Championship before Elimination Chamber. But at the time it was announced, he was not the champion.
No, it was not. Yeah, you're right. It was not.
Yeah.
Yep.
But he is certainly going to win it before Elimination Chamber. And the sixth man in the match at the time of announcement will be the Ultimate Warrior. So we've got 6 guys ready to go for the title, and it's generating a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement. But as we said, just weeks out from the Survivor Series match at Saturday Night's Main Event, Shawn Michaels captures the Intercontinental title. And now he enters the match with the potential to win a second championship, and his IC belt is not even on the line. Right. So he doesn't even risk losing his title. And then the weekend before comes a massive announcement. The Ultimate Warrior will not be in the match anymore. Something has happened. He's no longer there. He's left the company.
Oh boy.
And so we've got this big and it all happens on prime time. Prime time is when this announcement goes down.
That's right.
Vince is sitting in the primetime studio with Bobby Heenan, Mr. Perfect, Hillbilly Jim. Was it just the 4 of them? I think it was. Oh no, Hillbilly was there. Duggan wasn't in there with them as well, was he?
No, I don't think so. Was Piper there?
No, it wasn't Piper. I think it was just the 4 of them.
Yeah.
And so Jack Tunney comes on and announces that later that he's Ultimate Warrior is out and he's considering who will be the replacement. And he promises before the end of prime time that he will announce the replacement for the Ultimate Warrior. And of course, we hear from each of the competitors through the show. They say, they don't really, it doesn't worry them. And Ric Flair and Bobby Heenan talk about how they've been coming up with the perfect plan for victory at the Elimination Chamber.
Mm-hmm.
But before the night's out, it's announced that, well, the decision has been made and that the person who is going to be put into the match as the replacement is going to be the perfect replacement. And maybe Macho might even be in the studio. Macho's got to be involved in this because Macho suggests that you got this idea of the perfect replacement. And of course, Vince does you don't mean this perfect replacement. And of course, it starts out, yes, Mr. Perfect will be the replacement. And of course, Perfect and Bobby start laughing and Ric's on the screen as well. And they're laughing because they know they've got the perfect plan because Perfect will help Ric win the title. Perfect knows his place and he will step aside. He'll even lay down if he has to allow Ric to win the title. And you can see that Perfect doesn't like that. And Perfect starts to consider his position and says that he doesn't lay down for anyone. He's the perfect wrestler. He's not going to lay down in a match. And Bobby does his Bobby thing. You're going to take orders from me and Ric. If we tell you to lay down, you're going to lay down. And Ric and Perfect gets up, grabs Heenan, pours the water over his head, and we get that classic. We can still keep that classic moment in the build.
Yes.
That Perfect is going to be in the match. All he's saying is he's not going to lay down for anyone. He's in the match. He's going to challenge for the title, and he's going to win the title. Now, we wouldn't want Savage in the studio. The last person is going to be Ric on screen because it's going to be, I'm going to do what it takes to win the match, and everyone's shocked, and Vince thinks it's great and Hillbilly thinks it's great. But there's our background to this Elimination Chamber. Bret Hart, Ric Flair, Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, Randy Savage, and Mr. Perfect are our 6 competitors.
What an eclectic mix. Very eclectic mix of guys.
Very, very different from our first story. We've got guys that can really go in the ring.
Yeah, we've got work rate du jour, which means the the philosophy of the match changes. It doesn't necessarily have to be as violent as you said, Dave. We're 5 years earlier from, or four, I guess around 4.5 years earlier from our previous match. The violence level's even lower than 1997. So this is more of a war of attrition because you've got, I mean, who's the biggest guy in the match? Razor. I guess. Yeah. Everybody else are 235, 240 pound work rate guys. Flair and Bret and Perfect. Holy crap. I mean, we got the places. I mean, the internet. Well, there was no internet, I guess. Well, maybe there was. Prodigy or whatever was flipping out. The dirt sheets are going to go crazy. Meltzer's going to be flipping his sheets all over the floor. Well, they're already on the floor, but, and we've got the biggest, they could promote it as such, the biggest world title match in WWF, if they want to kind of needle Hulk Hogan, the biggest world title match, the biggest world title match in WWF history, because, you know, a cage, that doesn't work for me, brother. And, you know, is Razor going to work in concert with, to help Flair? Will he be Flair's insurance policy if Perfect now is not? So, and then you got Bret. Bret's like, I just won this belt. And then you got Shawn, who's just sitting there chuckling, like, I'm just gonna let these guys go at it, and he's gonna go the typical heel route and be like, listen, I'm just gonna sit here, let these guys do whatever they're doing. I'm just gonna sneak right in, and I'm gonna walk out of Richfield, Ohio, with both the Intercontinental and World Heavyweight Championships. So I think I'm glad that you picked this one, that we picked this one, Dave, to go after the first one, because not only are the participants different, except for Bret, but this is a different Bret. This is a less experienced Bret. And he's going up against a lot of guys who have, I mean, I guess Perfect and Bret are about the same age, but you're dealing with guys that have a ton of experience and are cagey, no pun intended, to try and wiggle their way to a victory. So the philosophy is very different compared to our first one.
Yes. Yeah.
So
and I think and this is the sort of match. I talked before about how the trope, the common thing these days is to have the guys that start the match get all the way to the end. This is the sort of atmosphere where these 6 guys, this is where you could do that and you would have no problem accepting that it would happen. And I think for that, on that basis alone, I would have Bret start. I would put Bret in that position. We know he can go. We know in 92 he was, you know, he's got the juice to be able to go from beginning to end. And I think knowing he's going to come out of the match as champion still, I think it would be a great showcase for him to show that he can go from the beginning to the end. He can do those long matches and adapt to whoever's in the ring with him. I think it would be a great showcase for Bret. I would start Bret off as one of the. I would portray it as very much. You've got to be kidding! Like the commentators would probably be. Who was the commentators at 92? Was it was Bobby was one? Was it Gorilla and Bobby?
I think it was Gorilla and Bobby. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Only Vince only did SummerSlams at that point.
Yeah.
I think it's Gorilla and Bobby.
Gorilla and Bobby. So you can say Gorilla can be saying, you know, this is, you know, he's been willing to fight anyone. He said he will fight anyone and defend his title against anyone, but this is ridiculous. Like, he's got to face everyone if he wants to keep the title. And Brain could be talking about how, well, this is going to be the shortest title reign in the history of the company because there's no way he could get, you know, he could last to the end. Like, I think Bret is the perfect guy to start the match.
Yes, I agree.
Now the question is, who do you start him against? Do we start him against Shawn, or do we start him against someone like Razor? Or
I would start. I like Razor actually. I would put Shawn last.
Okay. I wouldn't. I wouldn't put Shawn last. I think you need to have Perfect come out last.
Oh, okay. All right. I can see that. Sure.
Because
Okay.
you need to play into the storyline of will he actually help Rick or not?
Oh, that's true. That's true. I was
Hmm.
kind of thinking like Sean's Weasley and oh, I'm the first. But that's no, you could put Sean somewhere else. Yeah, I like Razor
Yeah.
first. And that could, if you are gonna have Razor and Bret, if we're not changing anything else in this timeline, and you are gonna have Razor and Bret at the Royal Rumble in Sacramento for the title,
You've got a bit
you
of a
kind of want to
preview
start
here.
working that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
think, I like that. So Bret and Razor start the match, and I think it's very much back and forth. Everything's happening in the ring to start with, until perhaps Razor sets up for a Razor's Edge, and Bret's near the ropes when he does it, and Bret backdrops him over the. I'm doing it again. The backdrop over the rope, but backdrops Razor over the ropes and onto the grate. And there's your first time it happens.
Yep.
But
Yep.
everything before that has been all in ring. And he backdrops him over the grate right in front of Randy Savage's pod.
Oh.
Just as the countdown starts. And the countdown starts and the pod opens and Savage races to attack Razor.
Yep.
Savage is the first pod up that opens. I think that's the one you want.
Yep. Okay, I'm game for that. Yep.
And that allows Savage.
This match is perfect for a guy like Savage because
Hmm.
he'll adapt to whatever's in here, and he could make this a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
he goes to town on Razor. Bret stands back for a moment and watch, and then maybe Bret joins in, and it's 2-on-1. It's Bret and Savage on Razor, and they're doing that for a moment, and perhaps at some point Savage is like Razor's down in the corner and Savage is kicking him in the corner or whatever, and Bret sneaks up. He does a roll up. He only gets 2 count out of it, but Savage kicks out and he turns and looks at Bret. What are you doing? And Bret highlights, it's every man for himself. I'm trying to retain my title. And that opens the door then for Bret and Savage to start. I don't think they would, not a Savage fisticuff thing, but then they start grappling and competing against each other as well. It opens the door for, it is every man for himself. And that moment creates the dynamic in the match where everyone knows now they're not going to work together because they're trying to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And once again, the Royal Rumble's a Royal Rumble, and we, you can kind of hide face, heel things. But here's again another dynamic where it's, the fans, we still definitely live in the kayfabe world, even more so than we were in our first match. And now the fans are like, yeah, what? I thought you guys like each other. We're supposed to beat the bad guys. Why are, but again, it's, and this is where, by the early 90s, fans even start thinking, it's you're talking about the most prized possession in wrestling. You're not just going to help your buddy win it because you like each other kind of thing. So it's it'd be an interesting dynamic for the fans to start growing up and growing out of the Federation era of the good guys are always working together and the bad guys are always working together. Because unlike the Royal Rumble where you can hide those kind of things amongst 25 guys, here you can't. Excuse me. Here you can't. So I like that. And I think you kind of test the audience a little bit, Yeah. So
I think you've got this battle going on. We get to our next pod, and I think this is when you can bring Flair into the match.
Okay.
Because we're at peak Flair. So Flair can come in, he can go to town, chopping everyone, he can take bumps, he'll get slammed onto the grate, he'll go into the cage, he'll bleed, because he's Ric Flair.
Yep.
And I think you can just have that 5-minute period where Flair is just, he's all over this match. He's on offense, chopping guys. He's taking shots from Savage. Savage is running him into the cage. Savage is slamming him into the empty pod casing. he's doing all that, and Flair just looks, makes everyone look great as Ric Flair does, especially in 1992.
Right. He kind of has I mean, yes, we had Flair bleeding and we had Bret bleeding at WrestleMania, and Vince may want to kind of, guys, if somebody gets busted open, somebody gets busted open, but let's not get too crazy. We can't have 6 guys bleeding. That's outrageous.
No,
So
I'd probably limit it to Flair, because the hair helps accentuate it. It'll have that sort of the blood
orange
going through the hair. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think dynamically, I think you're going to see bumps. Flair's going to energize the crowd while he's getting the absolute crap beat out of him, almost as much as the Rumble, but even more so because he's already won the title twice, and and now the fans are kind of acclimated to him being a legit contender. Unlike 92, you had some guys who've never heard of him because kids didn't watch NWA or whatever. But now he's gonna put on a show, and again, you've got guys that are all pretty much equally the same size, so you're not gonna worry about that part. It's just gonna be a good chance for Flair to just showcase his greatest hits for the fans as we move ahead with how he's gonna win this match.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get all of Flair's greatest hits in there. He'll go up and over the turnbuckle and race across to the other side. We'll see a couple of brilliant Flair flops. In fact, I'd love to see a Flair flop on the grate. I think that would be hilarious.
Oh my God, that would be so painful.
And of course,
but I like
he
that.
does the Flair flop down, and then he does the classic that sort of hits the ground and jumps straight onto his knees, going, "Oh God, like
yeah, exactly, yeah." Yep. It'd be hilarious. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've got all of that. Then we get the countdown, and Sean's pod opens up, and Sean can come into the match, and like you said, he can be a bit of he sees guys that are down, and he goes and sort of attacks them, but then he'll back away and try and hide, and he'll be moving in and out, and he's sort of that hit and fade sort of attack from Sean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I had him last for that reason, but your reasoning, obviously, for who we need last makes perfect sense, much more than me. But yeah, this is a chance for Sean to and for Sean to be showcased. This is, Vince is pushing him as part of the future of the middle of, as the new generation. So as much as you want him to be a heel and do heel things, you also want Sean to come off looking, not strong per se, but you want him coming off as looking like, a work rate stud. So yeah. Definitely make him shine a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm picturing one spot could be maybe Razor, like, because we've got this over on Man for Himself. So here's Razor, the biggest guy in the match. Maybe Sean takes a shot at him and Razor starts to stalk Sean. So Sean actually climbs up the cage and on top of the pod to get away from Razor, and then while he's up on top of the pod, he sees, maybe it's Bret and Savage and Flair are all fighting in the middle of the ring. And so Sean then turns and does a crossbody off the top of the pod onto the guys who are standing on the mountain. I think there would be a great Sean using his athleticism and doing something spectacular. I think we would see that from Sean in the match. No, actually, what I would do, he does that. This is where I would take the match at this point. Sean does this at the back end of his of just before Perfect's going to enter the ring, because I've got another high spot that I think we need to see, but I think it needs to happen before Perfect comes in. So Sean has fled, he's climbed the ropes, he's jumped on top of the cage, and he's jumped on top of a pod, sees maybe Razor's got back into the ring, and Razor and Flair and Bret are all right in front of him. And he does a crossbody on top of all three of them. And the crowd go wild and they're ecstatic. And Sean's on his back in the ring and the other three guys sort of roll out of the way. And then we suddenly discover that Randy Savage has climbed to the top of the pod, right on top of Perfect's pod. Because Perfect could be looking up at him. And there's there's that moment, Perfect sort of realizing what's going on in the match. I just like the image of having Perfect in there. And Savage drops the elbow off the top of the pod onto Sean.
That would be amazing.
And gets
Crowd
the
would
three
go crazy
count.
for that. Crowd would go crazy for that. Yeah.
Gets the 3 count. And Sean is the first one eliminated.
Okay.
Savage, of course,
I like how you kept everybody in. I like that. I like how you kept everybody in.
Yeah. Savage is he, you know, obviously coming off the top of the cage, takes a bit out of him. At this point, Razor and Flair just start to beat on him. And that's when Perfect's time in the pod over. The door opens and Perfect just stands there for a moment. And Flair and Razor can look at him sort of like, what are you going to do? And you've got that debate in his mind. Do I really want to go through this? This is my first match back from injury. Do I really want to get involved here? Do I want to help out? What am I going to do?
Right.
Flair and Razor see that he's not getting involved, and they turn and they start taking Savage again. And then Perfect runs in, grabs Flair, hooks him in the Perfect Plex, and drops him with the Perfect Plex for a 3 count. And Flair's out. Just like that. From a behind, like it's sort of that come from behind, sneak attack. Flair doesn't see it coming, and Flair goes absolutely ballistic for having been eliminated by Perfect. And we've got that moment. Perfect has made his choice. He's against Flair. He's not siding with Flair. And Flair's been taken out.
That's huge. And the place will go bonkers for that. Yeah. You want to jack that Richfield, Ohio crowd up, you're doing it, Dave. Big time. Yeah, I like that. Because deep down, you've got fans that are like, they want to see Perfect be the world heavyweight champion. He's been wanting that belt for, 3 years? And this is the closest he's ever come. He's not going to let anybody get in his way. And pinning Flair almost makes you think, if you think about it in a sense, pinning him almost makes you think, yeah, this is it. He got rid of, he vanquished Flair, and I think he could win this thing. And I think it will boost the crowd. I think we'll start to believe it.
Yep.
So I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bobby, you can just picture Bobby on commentary. Good, son of a gun. There's nothing perfect about this man. He's a cheater. He's all that.
Yep.
And Razor realizes what's happened, and Razor stops fighting Savage, and he turns around, and he and Perfect start going at it in the ring, and they can start battling away, and going for it, which opens the door for Savage to recover a little bit, and then he starts going at it with Razor. So you've got this moment where Perfect and Savage are both beating on Razor. But of course, everyone's forgotten about Bret,
the world champion.
And while this is going on, I think this is where Bret comes in, and probably I would do Savage at this point. I think he hooks Savage with a back suplex. Drops him with the back suplex and rolls his shoulder up, so so the ref counts, and Savage is eliminated that way. Bret's taken advantage, doesn't do anything sneaky, but he's just taken advantage of the moment, and Savage is actually, no, I need to take it back a step, because I think Savage needs to eliminate Razor to keep no, he doesn't, because we want to keep that feud going, so you don't want that. Right. So I think Bret takes Savage down. Yep. And Savage is eliminated, and that leaves us with Bret, Razor, and Perfect. And I think you've got that scenario then where I think, again, we want to build to Royal Rumble. So it's going to be, Perfect and Bret start going at it, and Perfect is the one who gets the pin on Razor. In fact, I think Perfect would be leaning into his heel tendencies. He trips Razor up in the corner, covers Razor and puts both feet on the ropes to keep Razor down so Razor can't kick out.
Wow. Okay.
So our last two then becomes Bret and Perfect. But as Razor goes to leave, I think he takes a shot at both guys. Clotheslines them both so they're down. And then your last two, Bret and Perfect, can go at it for just a couple of minutes, and it's probably some form of small package. Bret gets a small package on Perfect to retain the title, but we've made Perfect look very good. And Bret gets the win. He's survived the gauntlet. He's survived the match. And when he stands up, you could have Bobby on commentary going, hit him, Perfect, hit him, sucker punch him. And Perfect shoves his hand out and shakes Bret's hand. Shakes his hand, congratulates him, and Perfect heads out, and Bret stands tall as our winner.
Yep. I love that. That's awesome. You've made everybody. What I love about what you've done, Dave, is you've made everybody played to their strengths, and everybody looked strong in some capacity. Even Sean, and he was only there just because we had a body. Yeah, I love that. Everybody looks strong, and when you in this alternate universe, when you look back through history, you could look at this and go one of Bret Hart's crowning achievements to actually win this match against Sean and 4 very seasoned superstars. And then you've got feuds. You've got feuds building. And you set up, obviously you set up, they'll wrestle in the Rumble itself, and you'll still set up Flair and Perfect on Raw when, to get Flair out the door. Yeah. Sean.
Flair, that's part of the thing. Flair could be, you got me from behind, you cheated, I'd already copped a battering, I was bleeding, you came in at the end, you were fresh. Flair can use all the excuses in the world. And then Perfect just say, well, look, I'll put my career on the line. I can do it again. I did it once. I'll do it again. And to prove it, I'll put my career on the line. You and me, one-on-one, that second Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
If you beat me, Rick, I'll leave. If I beat you, you're gone. If I can beat you again, you're out of here because I know I'll do it. I think that sets that up. But you've also got, tied in with that, you can play the Savage Razor thing a little bit longer if you need to, because they weren't involved in each other's eliminations. But Bret gets out of that. Bret also comes away with a victory over Savage, and so Savage can talk him up when he's on commentary. He can talk about, Bret got me. He's the champion now, and I respect him for that. So Bret gets a clear victory over the man who, we never saw it in ring, but I think it gives a lot of credibility to Bret taking Savage down in the match.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it leads you into what we're going to see in 1993. Bret going strong. He'll get a title. He'll defend the title at the Rumble. Meanwhile, the other guys will be in the Rumble. One guy who wrestled earlier in the night at Survivor Series that could be looking off in the distance is one Yokozuna. I would have won this match easily. Mr. Fuji could be saying on the Cindies, because we don't have Raw yet, you should have put Yokozuna in this match. You would have taken all the guys out, and they could have made fun of him and said some fat joke like he couldn't have fit in one of the pods or something. Something dumb. But that was great. That was great, Dave. I think that told a great story. Again, you had experienced guys all, working in a smaller setting, and you make Bret look strong. And I thought that's a great. I hope everybody enjoyed that, because that's just fathom when we were that young. Well, I was in college, I guess I shouldn't say that young. But to see, these guys and what they did for their careers, in that match for themselves and for Bret. So I mean, tremendous job on that one, Dave. That was tremendous. I think we did a good job of setting everybody up for 1993. So we hope you enjoyed that one, folks. Not to break the fourth wall, Dave, but do we have time for one more? Do we want to? I think we went pretty good for these first two matches. So
yeah, no, I think this next one we have to do. I think we have to do this next one. We've got the time. We've got the time. We've got the time.
That's fine. No problem. Okay. So one more for the evening. We have like 6 or 7 of them, folks. So we got a bunch in the hopper for a future episode. Trust me. But I know the one Dave wants to do. I know the one he wants. So go ahead. Let's jump in.
I know the one you want to do.
Yes. Yep.
All right. We're going to imagine that Elimination Chamber was not a creation of WWF. We're going to imagine that it was actually a creation in NWA WCW. And we're going to find ourselves that with Dusty Rhodes having left the company in 1988 and gone, and he's now wrestling for Vince, that War Games was his creation. And NWA are trying to come up with something new, a new idea. And Ric Flair, being the senior booker, puts an idea. We want to try and take some of the elements of War Games, but we want to make it a one-on-one contest. We want to make it a one-on-one match. And Flair comes up with the idea of the Thunderdome Chamber and announces that at Halloween Havoc, it is announced at Halloween Havoc 1989, the NWA are going to host the first ever Thunderdome Chamber match. And that's where there is a cage surrounding the ring all the way down. It's enclosed at the top, and in each corner of the cage is a pod that will house 4 competitors, and 2 guys will start the match, and the other 4 guys will enter at regular intervals. After, the first 2 guys will go for 5 minutes, and then every 5 minutes after that, another guy will enter the ring. The difference between the NWA's Elimination Chamber and the Thunderdome Chamber is we're just not going to have the metal grates at that level. They'll actually go to the floor. So the match can go to the floor where the pods are. So basically that Thunderdome cage that we saw at Halloween Havoc, they've just got pods in there as well as an addition. So
gotcha. Okay.
And so it's announced that this match is going to be for the NWA World Title, and all the top contenders are going to be a part of the match. And it is going to be the world champion Ric Flair defending the championship in this match, and the other competitors will be his heated and hated rival, Terry Funk, Terry Funk's stablemate, the Great Mutar, Sting, the United States champion Lex Luger, and the 6th man will be Brian Pillman, who at this point was the number 1 contender for the US title. And these 6 guys are going to come, and they are going to be in the Thunderdome Chamber match at Halloween Havoc 89. And I thought we could get rid of the grate for this one. We've used the grate a few times, but I thought WCW in 89, you probably don't need the grate because they had that extra area outside their cage at Halloween Havoc. So I thought that's something we could just draw on that.
So the pods would be on the floor.
That's correct.
Okay. Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. I'm fine with that. Yep.
Yeah, just something different. Different.
Sure. Yep.
So there we go. 1989 NW. We know everyone knows you and I love this era. We've talked about this a few times. We've rebooked. We've done several storylines in 1989.
I know.
I note that neither Rick Steamboat's not in this match because he had left the company by this point. So we've told stories of Steamboat being champion. We've told stories of Great Muta winning the title. We've had fun with 1989, and I think this will be another fun one. This is another work rate match. This is another one where we've got the work rate guys to draw on.
Yep. This match will be similar to the Survivor Series 92 one, where we're going to have like a lot of guys that are stamina guys that could knowing NWA 89, this match could be 55 minutes or something crazy. So because you've got guys in there that could definitely go that length. Well, maybe except Luger, but I'm sure he'll find a way. So set us up.
Luger 88, 89 could still go. He could go, 25, 30 minutes minimum. Like he had more stamina than I think people give him credit for.
Well, it's funny you say that, Dave. On a side note, I just watched my other Chrono watch. I just watched Wrestle War 90, which of course was the match where he wrestled Flair for the title because Sting blew his knee out at Clash of the Champions. And that match I didn't realize how long, that match was 38 minutes.
Wow.
I did not remember the match being that long. And you're right. It actually, I stand corrected. I stand corrected. He didn't really start losing his stamina till probably like 95, 96. I think he started getting a little bloated, a little blown up. But anyway, that's another story. But all right. So, but I think this is similar. I guess Luger would be like Razor in the previous match.
Yeah.
Where, he's a little bigger than the rest of the guys, but he's got the stamina to hang. And yeah, after a year of Funk battling him, and then you had Steve earlier in the year, and you've got these other guys, and the Stinger, kind of built his cred with Muta. The fans are going to be, we have, can Ric Flair survive this battle? This stuff, it's not only his first time Flair has taken on multiple guys, but he can't run away. Now, obviously, we have no Horsemen because Arn and Tully were still in WWF and all that stuff. So Flair
and Flair wasn't a runner at this point. This was his babyface run, so he wouldn't have been looking to run.
Right. We're looking for Funk and Gary Hart's, J-Tex Corp to maybe, Gary Hart's paying Muta to not win the title, but to be there to make sure that Funk wins the title.
Yeah.
So,
and you look at interwoven storylines here. I mean, Flair was feuding with Funk and Sting was feuding with Muta, but they were also teaming up to feud, like Flair and Sting would feud with Muta and Funk. So they've been involved in each other's business. Then you've got Luger's history with Flair that comes into the mix, and Luger's previous friendship with Sting that comes into the mix. So that adds that element to it. And then you're bringing in, we're bringing Brian Pillman into the match. Now, he's a little bit of the odd man out, but in 89, he was coming up the ranks quickly. He had a very good year. He'd rocketed into the series with Luger. He really had a fantastic 89 and was proving to himself to be a good in-ring competitor. So while he doesn't have the storylines linked with the other five, he's certainly not out of place.
Mm-hmm. No, not at all. Not at all. And we need a kind of like Shawn in 92. We need just a young work rate guy that'll except differently. He's obviously a face. He's not going to annoy anybody, but a guy that can kind of be the underdog that can maybe, eat up some minutes, eat up some moves, and kind of get the crowd going a little bit, and maybe he inadvertently helps Flair and that kind of thing. So it's good to have a body like that in this match, a younger guy. So
where do we start? Scott? Where would you start with this one? Who would be your first two?
How about maybe just to make it a little fun and add a little, maybe get some early juice. How about Pillman and Muta?
I like that. That would be fun.
Let them go for a little bit. Throw them, chuck themselves all over the place.
Oh,
get some moves back and forth.
They'd have the crowd out of their seats.
Yeah, I think it's a good start.
They jumping off the ropes, coming off the ring, climbing up the cage, diving on each other. I think they would be fantastic to start the match.
Yeah, and they go for a few minutes. Again, you're just going to have good back and forth. Muta's getting orders from Gary Hart, and Funk is pointing, just take him out. Nobody cares about him. He's useless. He's a little rat. Get rid of him. we got to focus on him. And Funk's pointing in Flair's pod and jaw jacking with him, and Flair's barking back, and crowd's getting all into it. Because this is a new concept, you really want to get that Philly crowd, and we're in Philly.
Yeah.
Don't forget Survivor Series '89. We're in Survivor Series Halloween Havoc '89. We're in Philly, so the crowd's already bloodthirsty animals. So the crowd's already ready for cannibalism. So.
And it's NWA. We can bleed like we want. I think Pillman gets cut open early.
Yeah, I could see Muta, kicking him in the face, and then maybe start working him on the chamber wall. Yeah, I totally see that. Yep. Maybe Muta kind of shoves his face into the grate, and like Gary Hart's like barking orders to rip his face, and J-Tex, the whole point is you want Gary Hart's corporation, you want them to be absolute villains that by hook or by crook tonight and the all the Cindy shows, Terry Funk is walking out of this building, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And we don't care how we do it or who gets hurt along the way, but we are taking out Ric Flair, we're winning that title, and no one's going to get in our way. So Gary Hart's gonna be like, "Sorry, kid, you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time," and Muta could just absolutely torture him.
Now I'm gonna throw a question out. We haven't done this yet.
Sure.
But is this the sort of because Pillman's still early in his career and Muta's a guy on a massive rise? Is this the sort of moment is this the sort of scenario where you could perhaps have Muta actually beat Pillman before the 5 minutes is up, so that he actually, could be waiting for whoever comes into the match next? Or would you keep Pillman in there longer? Would that kill Pillman off if you have him eliminated too early?
No, I mean, guys like NWA didn't worry about that kind of crap like Vince did, where losing stunts somebody's, Pillman's in there as a relative rookie with literally like Hall of Fame guys, like literally all Hall of Fame guys. Maybe the only other guy that's mildly inexperienced would be Sting. But other than that, you're dealing with guys, even Luger's now been in the business, 4 or 5 years at this point. So no, I don't think it's a big deal. I think he gets tortured by Muta. I don't know if you want to miss it.
Maybe makes a bit of a comeback.
Sure.
And misses a move of some sort. Goes for a big move and misses it.
Yeah, maybe he gets Muta jarred a bit. Maybe he can't crawl on he can't get on top of the pod because, he could, I guess, if you do a move on the outside. And he maybe takes a silly rookie risk, and JR, or actually not JR, who's on comment? Well, I guess it would be JR. No, it's not Tony, because Tony's in WWE.
No, it was JR.
JR and I guess who?
Was it?
Well, right now they're kind of bouncing around because Funk. I don't know who would be the.
I'm trying to remember who it's. It wasn't solely Halloween Havoc.
He was doing interviews.
I'm just looking it up now.
Doc Caudle.
What? It was Jim Ross and Bob Caudle.
Oh, okay. So, they could be like, JR could just kind of say, Pillman taking a big risk here. He's young. He's not as experienced in these kind of situations. He may want, and Muta maybe missed him in midair.
Oh, that would be a great visual.
He missed him in midair. He splats on the floor. Muta throws him in the ring and does his regular finisher and takes him out.
Does the moonsault off the top rope and
does the moonsault off the top rope and finishes him off, and Pillman's got black or green all over his face.
Yes,
I don't think that's a problem. He got misted. You can't. He got misted.
And that plays into it because then Muta can stand in the ring and he can be glaring off the pods. Who's coming? I'm ready for you.
And then Funk could start like smiling, like, yeah, maybe I'm next. We could just sit here and relax. And then Muta starts kind of like perfect. Muta starts looking at him like, well, I don't know. And Gary Hart's concerned, like, well, Muta, hold on, stick with the plan, kids, stick with the plan. So you could have that little bit of doubt,
Yeah.
While he's looking at him. And then I would put, well, do you put Sting next? Because that's the feud that's been going on.
I think it needs to be Sting or Flair. It's got to be one of the two, because you can't. Not going to put Funk in there, and I don't think you're going to put Luger against Muta at this point either. It needs to be Flair or Sting.
Why don't we put Flair in there? Because I think Sting, we're still building up Sting and Flair's kind of friendship. We know that shit's the bed when we get to 1990, but so why don't we bring Flair in? Crowd goes nuts. Funk's banging on the plexi. Take him out. You egg sucking dog, banging on the freaking. I mean, it's chaos. That's why I love. And
Flair and Muta are banging, and Flair, chops. He ends up with Muta back in the corner that Funk's pod's in, and he's chopping away on Muta's chest, but he's looking down at Funk. He's looking at Funk, and he's doing his woo, so he'll chop. Look at Funk, woo, and Funk can be flipping out, like, let me at him, and that sort of creates your thing. And then of course, he could go to whip Muta across the ring, and Muta could reverse it. Flair goes over the top rope, the buckle, rushes across the ring, comes down off the top rope with an axe handle of some sort. You could really just sort of play into that moment. I think Flair ends up on the outside at some point being run. I think it'd be good, if Muta starts to get the ascendancy, and he throws Flair into Funk's pod, and then Funk can just be laughing at him and screaming at him through the pod, while Muta's there like tearing at the face and biting him and rubbing his head into the grate. And of course Flair will bust open after, give him 10 seconds. I'm sure he'll bust himself open as quick as possible.
Pretty much. Yep,
he's gonna bleed a gallon here. You just know Flair's gonna bleed a gallon.
Yeah, totally. He's got complete creative license. That canvas is going to be orange by the end of this match. So, because here's the situation now. Funk is looking around at the pods. The only two guys left are Luger and Sting, and he knows he's not going to get Sting. Sting's totally babyface. But maybe Funk starts looking at Luger, because Luger, you never know what you're going to get in terms of, Luger's about Luger. So maybe
89 Luger, it's very much that it's about him. And you could even see Luger would be like, he can go for it and he can be brutal, but at the same time, he doesn't want his head rubbed into the grate, and he doesn't want the mist in his face.
Right. So he's looking, and Funk's looking at him like, listen, and maybe Gary Hart's telling him through listen, I'll make this worth your while. And he's like holding up his briefcase or checks or something. And like, listen, I'll make this worth your while, kind of thing. Almost that you could have, like a $1 million man style thing of flashing the money. Like I've got some money for you, Yeah, exactly. Listen, you're already the U.S. champion. I will make you bigger than ever. Just help us out here. Help the Funker become champ, and we will, trust me, everything will work out for you. Like Funk is, Gary Hart's begging it because he's like, we're not going to get it out of Sting. So we're praying that the randomizer works in Funk's favor, and we get Luger's pod opened before we get Sting's, because we get Sting's pod opened, we're screwed. And Funk's praying that he, by the time he comes out, if he comes out last, the bones will be picked and he will be world champ. You know what I'm saying? So the psychology of this one, Dave, is through the roof, because you've got all this going on, all this stuff, and Funk's a maniac banging on the plexiglass, like the crowd, the Philly crowd. I mean, energy-wise, Dave, this match could go through the roof. Because he's banging on the thing, because he's telling him what, and praying that the randomizer doesn't have Sting next, so Sting and Flair could gang up on Muta, and then Funk stuck. It's crazy. So who would you put out? So here's the question then. Who comes out next?
Well, I think we need some classic storytelling here. I think you've got Muta and Flair. I honestly, I'm you and I might be loggerheads. I'd actually argue for the potential of putting. It needs. I think it needs to be Funk or Luger. We need the heels 2-on-1. We need Flair to be back against the wall. I would love it to be Funk, but I think there's more to the story of Funk being in the pod, like egging it all on and wanting to get out, but not being able to get out. Like, because of the hatred that Funk and Flair have, and Flair's in the match, you could have that Funk wants to get out, and maybe even he's trying to push his door open, his pod open, but it won't open because it's not his turn, and he wants in but can't get in. So I think maybe it needs to be Luger, only to be able to play the story of Funk. Like, it should have been me. I want in there, and Funk can keep going through this segment of let me out of this pod.
Who else is in at the time? Quickly, Dave. Besides Funk and Muta, who else is with Gary Hart? It's just them two, right?
It's just those two at this point in time. The Dragon Master comes after Halloween Havoc.
Yeah, because I'm thinking there's got to be a way where like the referee is distracted. Meanwhile, Gary Hart's giving like Funk like a lock pick, like let's get it open, get some shots in, and then run back in real quick. Like any way to kind of like shirk the system. But I think I might be going too niche in the weeds. But no,
what I'm picturing is later, like before he gets out, Gary Hart passes Funky's branding iron. He's banging on the pod with his branding iron.
Right, yeah. Getting really loud because he wants in, and he's had it with this randomizing rules and all this crap. Just let me in here. I think it needs to be Luger. So Luger is the next one in, and it's he and Muta and Flair, because again Luger's out for himself, so he'll work with Muta, but then he'll take shots at Muta as well, and Muta will take shots at Luger. So you've got that dynamic where you can have the three-way stuff happening. Yep. And Funk is just looking exasperated, like he doesn't know what's going to happen next. And Sting's on the other side. This Sting's he can't see Sting. That's the one on the opposite side.
Yeah, they're on the diagonal.
Yes. So Sting is like, just come on, Rick. And because remember Lex and Sting aren't getting along because Lex kind of turned on Sting in the middle of the year. So because remember that's when Flair turned on Steamboat. Luger turned on Steamboat to turn heel. So Sting's openly rooting, come on, Rick. Yeah. And Funk's banging on the thing, and Gary Hart's trying to get his branding iron in.
And I'm even picturing Luke, like Flair being on the ground, on the mat near Sting's pod. And while Muta's beating him over, like Luger just looking at Sting going, this is who you want to be friends with? Like, you could have been, you and me, but you want to be friends with him. And then, doing the pose, like then Luger getting arrogant and posing in front of Sting, picking Flair up and press slamming him, and then doing his muscle pose in front of Sting, like, I'm the man.
Yep. Absolutely. And Sting's getting frustrated. The crowd's going nuts. We get the camera gives us close-up shots of the big gold belt, the World Heavyweight Championship sitting on the table, and
every now and then Flair gets those temporary comebacks. He starts to battle back. He starts to get some momentum, but then it's clear that Muta and Luger, while they're working for themselves, they're not really trying to take each other out. They're more focused on, like, Luger's just, he'll do whatever it takes for himself, but he's not putting energy into attacking Muta unless there's an opening. Like he takes shots at Muta, but he does it when Muta's not really ready for it. It's that heel sort of taking advantage. But then if they were facing each other, it would be, well, let's just get Flair.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We need to focus on, thinning the herd here, because, ultimately the goal is to become World Heavyweight Champion. So we have two guys left, and obviously probably the best thing at this point would be to bring in Funk.
Yeah,
And
I think so.
and now Funk's in, and he's cackling at Sting, and now J-Tex takes over, and Muda and Funk, who's now fresh, obviously working over Flair. Luger's just standing back, going, you know what, you guys do your thing. I'm good. You know.
And actually, I think this is the perfect element because Luger stands back and just watches them. He's just letting him go to town, and Muda and Funk are beating up on Flair, and Sting's and Luger's just looking at it and enjoying the moment. And I think at some point there, with everyone happening, Luger could go up behind Muda, and Luger could roll him up and grab the tights and eliminate Muda.
Yeah.
Because I like the idea of eliminating Muda without it being Flair and without it being Sting.
Right. Sure. I like that idea.
And Gary Hart can be incensed, and Funk can realize what's happened, and then Funk goes after Luger. Like, it's sort of that moment of, Funk being the crazy guy. You've done what? Well, I'm going to teach you. And he just goes to town on Luger as well. And at this point, probably busts Luger open.
Yeah. Maybe Gary Hart hands him something, the branding iron or something.
Yeah.
It just drills Luger in the head with it. And he's jarred for a minute, and then he starts working Flair while the clock's still ticking, and obviously we know who comes in last. And maybe Gary Hart tries to get in the ring and try to keep the door pushed closed so Sting can't get, or maybe Muda, now eliminated, stands in front of the pod and won't let Sting out, and then Sting just kind of maybe. And then Sting just, maybe we get our first plexi moment. Sting just pushes through the plexiglass and shoves Muda out of the way. The crowd goes batshit, and then Sting, starts getting his, helping Flair out, and then Sting starts work. Now we pair off. Sting starts battling Luger. Flair's still battling Funk.
Yep.
I think at some point, I
like the idea. I think if the next elimination, I think it would be good. I think, they pair off for a while. Then Funk picks up the branding iron again, and he starts walloping everyone with the branding iron, and his takeout of Luger is a shot to the head, and Luger is just laid out from the branding iron, and Funk gets a cover on Luger to eliminate Luger. I think Luger needs to go out in a way that it's sort of, there's, Luger doesn't look weak in doing it. Luger, here's this big, strong Luger, but a branding iron shot to the head after he's already been busted open earlier takes him out, like knocks him out. There's nothing he can do about that.
Right. Yeah, I like that idea. Yep. Definitely. And Luger's a big guy. You gotta let him get a little shine here by needing a branding iron to knock him out. He is the U.S. champion, so. All right, and that leaves Sting, Flair,
and Funk. And I think, again, we've still got to have our blow-off match between Flair and Funk. So I don't think Flair can be the one who eliminates Funk. So I think Sting has to be the one to eliminate Terry Funk.
And then that leaves us. And so
I think Sting. Yeah, I think Sting can. Flair. Funk can and Flair can be battling. Maybe Funk. Like I said, Funk's been taking people out with the. He took everyone out with the branding iron. He's pinned Luger. Luger's being taken out by the has to be taken out by the referees. He's got to be literally dragged out because he's unconscious. So they're having to drag him out. So with the door open, Funk gets a chair. He goes, quickly darts outside, gets a chair, comes into the ring with a chair, and he starts going to town on Flair. Maybe he's targeting the back and the neck, and then he's targeting the leg. And then he sort of lifts the chair up to go over the head to come right down on top of Flair's head. And Sting's come behind him, and Sting grabs the chair, and Sting absolutely clobbers Funk with the chair. And then hits a Stinger splash in the corner and gets a pin on Funk. So there's the chair element plays into it. It's not clean, but it allows us to get Funk out of the match and leaves us with a very bloody and beaten Ric Flair and a reasonably semi-fresh Sting. And the two, the two friends look at each other, and Sting sort of, he acknowledges, oh, it's the two of us, and he reaches his hand out, like sort of helps Flair back to his feet, and Flair sucker punches him to show that this match isn't over yet.
Right. Yep.
And
then they go. Okay.
They go at it. I think the way you could end this match, they're going at it. I mean, Flair is obviously, he's beaten down. I mean, he's bloody, he's beaten, he's been in there for ages. I think Sting could hit the Stinger splash on him and set him up for the Scorpion. He lifts the legs up, he puts his leg grapevine on, and he starts to hook the legs. And it's sort of that, there's a hesitation moment. He's looking at Flair like, can I really do this to Ric Flair? All he's been through, the friendship that we've given, you've got that hesitation. And in the moment of hesitation, Flair sits up, grabs the body, and turns it into a cradle for a 3 count. A small package, sorry. Turns it into a small
package for the 3 count. Flair retains the title. And then afterwards, Flair kind of looks at Sting like, listen, man. And Sting could give the look like, yeah, you got me. That's on me. I fucked up. That's on me.
I paused. I hesitated. You got me.
You got me.
And with the idea of it won't happen again. Like he could even say in the, they do a post-match interview. Gordon Soley or Jim Ross comes into the ring and, they congratulate Flair, can talk everywhere. What a tough match it was, toughest of his career. And, Sting, you had me. You had me and you hesitated. And Sting could go, yep, it's never, if we ever, I promise it's never going to happen again. And that lays the groundwork for the Iron Man match and then the Iron Man tournament and then the title match the following year. It's sort of like, okay, yeah, I've got to learn from this and it won't ever happen again.
Yep. He could say nicely, he goes, listen, Stinger, it was an honor to be in the ring with you. And maybe one day we'll get it. But you got to finish. There's no friends in there. We're friends. Maybe we're friends elsewhere in the world. But when you're within those 4 ropes, man, you got to take me out. And you let me take you out. You can't, the narrative could be fine, and then we continue on obviously with J-Tex. Then we of course get to the Iron Man at Starrcade and move on to 1990. So I think that's awesome. Boy, what a story! Wow, and I tell you, what a perfect night for that show to be in Philly.
Oh yeah,
because the crowd's already like fired up and rabid, psychopaths. So now you've got this crazy idea and blood's all over the canvas and. Branding irons and it'd be a great concept.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, maybe, by 1998, they'll abuse it and it'll be 6 NWO guys or something. I don't know. But so who knows? But anyway, well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed those 3 journeys back through time to 2 of them where the Elimination Chamber in the WWF were used before 2002. And then one instance where I guess you could say a hybrid variation of the Elimination Chamber was used in Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, actually kind of almost enveloping into WCW at that point because they were owned by Ted Turner. So, Dave, always a pleasure. That was awesome. And again, folks, we have more of these. we've got another 3 or 4 of them in the hopper. So we will do I don't know if we'll save them for next year, or maybe we'll cheat and do it later this year if we need a topic. But we do have more chamber scenarios to go over with you. So we have some hopper for
and
next
if
year.
you guys have got a chamber scenario, if you've got an idea of, hey, a chamber in this company or at this time with these guys, would love to hear it. Let us know. We'd love to put it in the list and add it
please.
to
maybe if you have a TNA one, or if you have a Ring of Honor one or something, I don't know, or an ECW. Oh Jesus, could you imagine ECW chamber? A 1995 ECW chamber.
Oh my goodness!
You've got, because I can already imagine. I can already imagine Shane Douglas, the pretty boy, with like Sabu, Sandman, Axel Rotten, and all these freaking
Raven.
absolute, sociopaths. And he's the pretty boy, the franchise. That would be great, but something to think about. But anyway, we post the show on the Place to Be page, and go into the comments and let us know what you think. So, Dave, always a pleasure. You can find Dave everywhere. He's on the No-So. He's on the Facebook pages. Feel free to hit him up. Hit me up as well. A new show. I want to take a minute, Dave, before we head out. A new show that we're starting here on the PTB Wrestling Network. It's called From the Vault. And you already saw the premiere episode last week, Callum McDougall. What we want to do is, listen, we want to take advantage because obviously over in Dave's neck of the woods, there is no more WWE Network. And I know your Netflix is moving no faster than my Netflix is in terms of adding stuff. The difference between you and I is here in America, we only have to worry about Raw. For you, it has to be everything. So the WWE Vault YouTube channel, and now a friend of mine who works for WWE was part of this launch, the new WCW YouTube channel.
Oh, I know. That's a good one.
Yeah. So we have decided to start a new show here. They're like pod blasts, but it is a show. It's called From the Vault. And anybody, anytime is going to come here on the PTB Wrestling Network and live watch something from the Vault. It could be a match. It could be a show. It could be, TV or pay-per-view. Most likely it'll be TV. I'm sure no one's going to pick a pay-per-view. Well, maybe they will. Who knows? Just something special from the Vault, whether it's the WWE Vault, maybe the WCW page. The WWE Vault's adding a ton of ECW stuff as well. So, Dave, I would love to ask you to freely do one whenever you'd like. We would love to have you on From the Vault. If you ever wanted to do one,
absolutely.
I'd be honored to have you
on that.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a bunch of different talent just popping in and doing a vault. So keep an eye on that. That's gonna come up whenever it comes up. There's gonna be no set time for that. So you'll just see it one day and go, wow, neato. So of course, check out all our great shows, all the great shows Luke Jennings does, all the stuff on Chronoso and over on the No-So that Dave does. We'll have a new Wrestle Tracks next week. Myself and Greg Diener. Check out this past week's episode of the main event. We have a new one in 2 weeks. Again, our 250th episode. And of course, check all the great stuff on the archive. So have a wonderful rest of your March. And we will see you next month for another trip through WrestleMania's past and maybe future through the Looking Glass.